Ian and I are back. We're talking gap running schemes. And today is kind of the big one. This is the one that we feel is going to become a major player, maybe even the running scheme that Texas majors in this season, certainly at the beginning of the Arch Manning era. And that is going to be the counter running scheme. So, all right, Ian, let's just get into it. There are a lot of details that go in here. This is something that you've written about on InsideTexas.com. Let's just explain it from the beginning. What is a counter running scheme? Maybe start by explaining what the counter element is.
Counter is, the idea is that it's the counter to power. So we explained in the last video on power, you get double teams at the point of attack, knock people sideways, kick out the edge player with your tight end or your fullback, and then you pull a guard from the backside to lead through the hole for the running back. The trick also, as we discussed in the last video, is that your tight end fullback has to make a direct physical block at the point of attack. And a lot of modern tight ends are not about that life. And the fullback just doesn't even exist.
Right.
So for that, you have counter. And the way counter works is in an old school offense, when you're under center and the quarterback's under center to snap it, the guard would pull first, and he would go kick out the edge guy and execute that block that your tight end or fullback would on power. And then your tight end pulls behind him, and he gets to go lead block up on the linebacker. And then the quarterback would initially give it to the running back going one way to let those blocks pull around and set up. And then the running back would go late, switch direction, and follow his lead blocks. So there was a misdirection element, the counter step by the running back, this way and then back. Nowadays, a lot of that misdirection is mostly lost. And the point is just have the guard execute the difficult block and the tight end get the easier block. And the fact that the running back is now in the shotgun most of the time tends to make the timing work out. Sometimes he takes a counter step still. Sometimes he gets the ball and he's just immediately running behind the pulling blockers.
Again, my favorite question, what type of offensive line profiles to this? I know that starting again with this Arch era, you and I are both excited about DJ Campbell. What type of player makes this running scheme so effective on the offensive line?
You need the guard has to be physical. He has to go block a defensive end that may or may not see him coming. Ideally, he doesn't see him coming, and you can just go flatten him, put him on his back. Sometimes they do see you coming, and they gear up to blow up the play, and you got to win that block decisively, or the play can be in big trouble. So the physicality, the nastiness is essential, but mobility is very important. You can watch sometimes coaches love to make jokes on Twitter, and they'll point to a particular offensive lineman. Maybe it's a really big hulking guy, and he's like way back off the line of scrimmage from where he normally is. And then they'll say, hey, guess which one of these guys is going to pull?
Right.
It's that huge fat guy who can't get over there without giving himself a head start, which also gives you a tell. Your ideal guard is fast enough to get over there quickly, but then still big and strong enough and dispositionally suited to be a bully.
Now that's the offensive line. You've also written about the skill set that not only Arch has, but what counter does for the passing game. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, counter is a great counter to zone in addition to being a great counter to power. So a lot of teams have it as one of their go-to run plays. The pulling guard component, and especially the fact that on counter your guard pulls to block the guy on the edge, makes it unbelievable for play action. Because once you pull that guard around, the defense sees that and they're like, we got to get downhill. They're about to try to run downhill on us. We got to meet them there. And it pulls past defenders like linebackers and sometimes even safeties. It pulls them out of their lane. And you create big open swaths of field for your receivers to run across. And it also, because the guard is going to block that edge and pass protection, the assignments line up neatly to buying the quarterback time. He pulls, everybody freaks out, and then he has a chance to secure the edge for you on play action. May even see it could be very effective against a really good edge to make him think for a moment. And if he's a bad matchup for your offensive tackle, which is usually not a problem for Texas, Texas has had amazing offensive tackles. But theoretically, if you're facing Texas and you're facing Colin Simmons, you might love counter play action because then your tackle doesn't have to go, say a Hail Mary and try to hold up against Colin Simmons. Somebody's going to come from the blind side and do it for him. That's very helpful.
Can you talk a little bit also about one of the other major elements of Sark's offense is motion? What does motion create in Congress with a counter run scheme?
Sark loves the motion for really all of his run schemes because if you move a slot receiver from one side of the field to the other, the defense everybody's assignment changes. Either the guy across the room has to follow him across the formation to maybe keep everybody else's assignments the same, or else everybody has to slide over. And then potentially your gap changes in the run game. If you're a defender, you're the guy you have to watch out for in the pass game. If it's a play action or an RPO, that changes. So Sark does that. And so he just makes people think on their feet at the last minute. And that does maybe pairs with counter better than some other plays because counter is a downhill physical scheme. So if you're a defender, the last thing you want to be doing before you have to get downhill and take on a blocker forcefully, or else you get run over, is to be thinking about, wait, who do I have again? So Sark loves that.
Let's diagram this out a little bit and look into some game tape. But before we do, I want to hear from our sponsor.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
Okay, Ian, would you consider this basic counter? Is this like core counter?
This is a very standard spread counter play. You would call it a GY counter, which means the guard pulls first and then the Y, the tight end, pulls second. And that's the most standard version. Texas runs this all day, every day with the Y tight end, or if they play with 2 tight ends, and maybe it's the other tight end that pulls. And so it's much like power, but you're running it to the weak side. If the defensive tackle T aligns to the strong side, which is where the Y is, this is another benefit of counter actually, is that a lot of times you're running it on the weak side of the defensive formation. So you might be running it away from their best defensive tackle, maybe away from their strongest linebacker, etc. So they got down blocks, the center and the right guard block down, and they're trying to push those guys sideways. The defensive end is initially unblocked, but the guard pulls around, and his job is to find him and ideally drive him out to the other sideline. If he can't, he needs to get in front of him and also wash him down in the same direction as everybody else. The tight end is going to come around and find the best path he can take to go block the linebacker. And then I drew a little counter step for you here, LC.
I saw that. Yeah, that's really nice.
He comes back for the ball, and then he goes back behind the blockers. But you could also run it with the running back in the pistol, and then it's just a straight shot. Or you could run it. He could be on the other side, on the same side as the Y, and just maybe have just a moment of delay before he gets going.
to me, when you break this down, especially with that little stutter step that you're talking about, this also seems a very good way or an easy way to describe, or rather to disguise an RPO. Is that fair to say?
It's great for RPOs for sure. Because so in this instance, that in the nickel out in space across from the H, he may be essential for the defense in making sure that there's not like a big wide open edge on the outside of this play. Or he may be essential in fitting inside between the defensive end and the Mike linebacker if the Mike linebacker gets blocked. But if you have the H running a screen or a slant behind him or something like that, then he can't really do that. And he gets held back, either gets held in place covering, and then he can't help you outnumber the run game, or he's running downhill to be a solution, and then you're just making an easy flick out in space to, DeAndre Moore or Silas Bolden or someone that's you don't want to make it easy for Texas to throw an easy little toss to them in space because that's going to be bad for you.
Well, let's look at some actual game tape of this. Okay, so here is an example. I believe this is Louisiana Monroe that we're playing. Let's have a look at this, and again, break down some of the things that you're seeing. Just again, I think pre-snap, what are you seeing here, Ian, that would maybe even suggest to you that this is counter?
They actually they had the tight end switch from one side to the other, which allowed them to kind of mess with Louisiana Monroe's strength call. So like if Louisiana Monroe is like, we're going to line up with our best defensive linemen here and here to stop strong side runs, and then you change where the strong side is, you start to play games and hunt matchups that way. You're also in the pistol, so you got to be worried about downhill runs in general and maybe duo, which we'll get to in another video. But instead, they hit them with counter, and they hit them with what you would call GH counter. So the guard pulls, and then the H tight end, Juan Davis, who's lined up just behind to our right of Gunnar Helm. He'll be the lead blocker behind him. So they're going to pull the guard, kick out the guy on the edge, which looks like it's going to be that ULM player that looks like he's wearing number 11 on the outside, like an outside linebacker. He's going to be the guy, kick him out, lead block up to 7, that middle linebacker, and then everybody else just push downhill, see what kind of openings we can create. So what ended up happening for ULM, though, is that the outside linebacker got too wide. And so the guard hit the linebacker. He couldn't get around the guard. So then the tight end, he just goes and hits the linebacker too. And you end up with just a gaping hole up the middle. It's very, very hard to cheat counter. Colin Simmons is one of the only people I've ever seen that cheats counter all the time, meaning that he like runs around the pulling blocker.
Well, he has his own methodology of just not even participating in what they expect him to do.
It's generally not a good idea. If you don't have the fast twitch muscle of a jaguar, then do not do that. You need ideally to defend it by blowing up that pulling guard. But this guy, he doesn't want to do that, and that's probably why they switched sides so they could run it at specifically that guy, because they're like, if we pull around for that guy, he's not going to be meeting us in the hole with any real ferocity, and we're going to go just run them over, which is what happened.
Okay, so that is the standard. That's your basic, your bread and butter counter. Let's talk about GT counter. Now, this is something where Texas can really create some damage. What are some of the elements? What's the major differences? I know it may sound obvious, but what are the major differences between what we just described as maybe a basic counter and GT counter?
So I just diagrammed for you GY counter, which meant the guard kicks out. It's the first puller. He goes and kicks out. And then the Y, the tight end, is the second puller, and he lead blocks. GT counter means G, the guard, is the first puller and the kick-out blocker. And then T for tackle is the second puller. So your old school GT counter would be maybe the tight end blocks that defensive end. He doesn't pull. He just stays on the backside. You pull your guard to hit the end, and then you pull your, in this case, left tackle. And he's the one that runs around and looks for a linebacker to go crack. And if you watch the NFL draft, if this is the future, and you're watching this video in the future, for the 2025 NFL draft when Kelvin Banks was drafted, one of everybody's favorite clips to show up Kelvin Banks was him executing GT counter on the goal line against Oklahoma State. And so he got to be the second puller to go around, and he ended up finding like the middle linebacker wasn't even there, and instead it was like the nickel or something. Kelvin Banks found the nickel and just ended him. I don't think he was ever heard from again. It's a very beneficial if you have a mobile tackle, which most teams do because he's your tackle. He has to be mobile. If he's physical and nasty, this play can be really great. There's actually more to say on that, but maybe let's watch this clip first, and you can kind of see it in action. For this one, Texas is going to run GT counter exactly like I said, with the tight end blocking on the backside. And then they pull the guard to kick out, the tackle to lead, and you can see quite a lot of space for the running back. Even get your little counter step in here, LC.
Oh, that's not, yeah, that's well diagrammed.
It's going to go the other way, and then he's going to come back. That first block goes well. The tackle, Cam Williams, he actually saw that the defensive end was getting inside. And so he's like, oh, I'll lead this outside. That'll be the better way to get to the linebacker and to lead block for my running back. But because the left side had washed the other team down so far, the running back just said, forget it. I'm just going straight. This is good. We don't need to get outside. This will be fine. If you go back to the beginning of it, here's the trick about GT counter in the modern era. Is that what if instead of 85 gunner helm, what if instead of blocking out on that number 5 outside linebacker, what if instead gunner helm just ignored that guy and went down the field to pick off another defender? And Arch Manning looked at that guy and said, okay, if that unblocked guy comes hard off the edge to get my running back, I'm going to pull the ball like on a zone read and just run around the edge. And Lincoln Riley was doing that, exactly that, at Oklahoma from 2015 to 2021 when he was there. And it was absolutely devastating. Because what you've done is now your tight end, he's gone from power, he has to block downhill on some guy across from him who can see him coming. Counter, he gets to go lead block on a linebacker. That's better. GT counter read, he's not blocking anybody big. He can go pick off like a safety or a linebacker or he can go run a route like on an RPO and just not have to do anything remotely physical or difficult. Your quarterback does the heavy lifting for him, and you get to pull your big, nasty offensive lineman to do all the dirty work. And so Oklahoma was devastating. They could play spread sets, but have a power run game running behind NFL linemen. And so on defense, it was like, what do we do? If we try to get wide to defend all these receiving threats, they're going to run this down our throats. If we try to get big and physical down in the box, now they have 3-4 athletic dudes out in space and we can't cover them all. Devastating. 6 out of 7 years, they won the Big 12 championship, but this is a foundational component. Still doing it at USC. Caleb Williams won the Heisman Trophy with this. Now can be coming to Texas with Arch Manning.
All right, there you have it. That is GT counter gap running scheme. We have a couple more of these coming for you, but we really appreciate you being here. Be sure to check us out at InsideTexas.com. Ian's been writing a lot about how we might see counter in the Arch Manning era, and we would love to see you there. Until next time, thanks a lot.